next to somebody who is not here for the first time. So please do make connections throughout the evening. So Tech Wednesday is our monthly meetup. We are here the third Wednesday of every single month. We are here to connect with other people in the region, talk about tech, live, breathe tech, everything tech, except today when the tech doesn't work. So please, as I say, make some connections throughout the evening. You never know who you're going to meet, so please do chat to each other. You can also talk about us online, so if you would like to, throughout the evening, use the hashtag TechWeds. That keeps everything in the same place, and afterwards any of the speakers can just pop on there and connect with you guys as well. So that's me. My name is Stephanie. My role here at the Innovation Birmingham campus is community engagement. So that is putting on a wide variety of events and activities, such as tonight, to make sure that everybody based here on the campus is getting their most out of their time with us, but also bringing in external guys, like some of yourselves, to mingle with the people who are here so that it's mutually beneficial. We are joined this evening by the lovely team from Burley Law. So Liz and Des have got their faces up there, but we're also joined by Isha and Reese, who you will be able to speak to throughout the networking also. And then Talitha joins us from VWV. And this evening we've got quite a law topic. So the guys from Burley Law are going to have a really interactive talk with yourself, so we'll need you to get your phones out during the session. We're going to run some Slido polls, so please do get involved. It's going to help the talk shape itself, essentially. They're going to talk about some things that they wish they knew when they started out, so hopefully any of you guys who are starting out don't make the mistakes, and you're ready to go on your journey when you leave us this evening. And then Talitha is an employment law specialist, senior associate. She's going to be talking to us about all immigration matters, both professional and personal. So any conversations that you would like to have with Talitha. If she doesn't answer your question during her talk, then please do catch her at the end. Then I'll just quickly whiz through a couple of events that we've got coming up that you guys can get involved in, and then the pizza will arrive, and the smells will fill the room, and nobody will care what I'm saying because their tummies are rumbling, and then we'll just have hopefully about 45 minutes of networking afterwards with some pizzas and beers. So I'm not going to take any more of your time. I'm going to hand over to Des and Liz and Isha. I'm going to hand the clicker to Reese, who's in charge of that. And please put your hands together for Burley Law.
Thanks, Steph, for that wonderful introduction. It's the second time that Burley Law have been invited to do a Tech Wednesday. And those who were here last time, I don't know if there's anyone who was here last time, may have come again because someone in the front row got a free can of Guinness, because last time we were talking about the widget in Guinness and the patent. We're not talking about patents this time, don't worry, we're talking about something very differently. And in fact, it's since that time, so we set up 8 years ago in the building next door, before this building was even built, and we're now in the university centre. And we've spoken to all kinds of businesses here from the very early stages. But unfortunately, most of those conversations are when people are in a bit of a hole. They're in a difficult situation. And when you start up a business, all kinds of things can challenge you. But some of those things can be, if you put some work in beforehand, some easy steps, then you can avoid those problems and deal with the normal business uncertainties. So that's why it's about the things I wish I'd known beforehand, because sometimes that really costly advice could have been avoided. So in that 8 years, one reminder, yeah. So the Slido, we're going to make sure you're listening by asking you some questions. So there'll be 3 questions in this. So it's on slido.com and hashtag 8801193. I'll leave that for a minute. And it's just on a browser, so you don't need to download an app or anything. And we've got those questions as we go. Anyone else? No? Okay. A few more. Right. So, in that time, we've expanded. It was just me to start with, but now we're bigger. So I cover IP and technology. Liz, who will be speaking as well, is HR and employment. We're also husband and wife, you may have noticed. And also speaking tonight will be Isha, and Reese's helping out with the quiz. Right. So the talk, we're going to do a case study. So we're amalgamating all those tricky conversations we've had over the years with businesses here and externally, and all those cautionary stories, and we've put them into one case study. So we're going to go through that case study, then we're going to go back in time, so TARDIS, time turner, whatever you want to call it. We'll go back in time, and then we'll do it again, and what should have been done to avoid all those problems. And in terms of the case study, there's 4 parts. So part 1 is the setup, when the business is set up. Part 2 is the development stage, so creating the product and getting the team together, so people. Stage 3 is the launch, and you'll see where that doesn't go right. And stage 4, which everyone, the nirvana of most businesses here, get the investment, and that didn't go right in the case study. But we'll go through that first, wind back, and then we'll do it again. Okay, Isha.
So the first stage is the setup stage, and our case study involves Ben and Anna. They've been friends since primary school, and one day they meet up for lunch, and they're sharing their frustration over not being able to order good vegan food via food delivery apps. So they're talking about this, frustrated, both of them. They decide to set up their own food delivery app, which specializes particularly on vegan food, and they decide to go into business together on a handshake. So then the next stage is the development of the product. And here, Ben and Anna realize that they can't do this all alone and they need to source some extra people. So they first employ Erica, which is the software engineer. She will be doing the grunt work and she's paid on a monthly basis. And then they bring in Archie, who is the software architect. He works for them on an ad hoc basis, and he'll be doing the high-level app development, and he also runs his own business. And lastly, we have Isla. She's an enthusiastic intern, and she's doing a bit of everything, a bit of the coding, and she's also there for the work experience.
So we need you to do a bit of work now. Have you managed to upload the browser? Yeah, Slido. First question is about one of the people in the business. We mentioned Isla, who's come in to work as an intern, getting some work experience, which is really beneficial for her, but she's also helping out in the business. So, from an employment point of view, we want you to tell us if you think Isla is A, a volunteer, B, a worker, C, an employee, or D, it depends. Hedge your bets. So, do your poll, do your answers, leave that on the screen while Isha moves on.
So the team have been working hard, and they've now developed the software and designed the app from which people can download and order vegan food. They decide to name the app Gorilla Vegan, and they create a logo and branding for the product.
This one's an IP question, so I'm asking this one. So, after they launch the product, which of these would be protectable as intellectual property? The concept, the general idea, the code, and the brand. So we've mentioned those 3. So is it all 3? A, code and brand, B, or concept and brand, C? So this will be up until the next question, so it will stay on your browser for a couple of minutes.
So moving on to the next stage, which is stage 3, and this is the launch. So the app is ready, and the team get it onto the app stores, and they have a soft launch. They gain some popularity, and they hear about a food show that's on at the NEC, and they're really keen to invest all their time and money into this. So they pay thousands for a fancy stand, they employ extra people to help man the stand, and they also invest in a marketing agency to help with their social media. However, a week before the show, they receive a letter from a competitor saying that they saw Gorilla Vegan's name in the show listing. However, they have a prior registered trademark for vegan gorilla, and therefore Ben and Anna must stop using the name Gorilla Vegan and refrain from attending the show.
So another question from me. This is the last question, don't worry. And we will give the answers after. So the competitor, Vegan Gorilla, what can they do? Just stop them using the name, or if they really push it, get them to stop, rebrand and close their stand at the show, or all of those, plus damages, A, B, or C. That'll be up there a bit longer because we haven't got any more further questions, but yeah, okay.
So the last stage is stage 4, and this is all about looking for investors. So after this mishap with the competitor, Anna soon becomes fed up with Ben, and she decides she wants to leave the business, demanding her share of the company. Ben starts to struggle with the funding and decides to look for investors for help. So he's doing the presentation and it's going positively, and the investors start to ask Ben some questions. They ask who owns the business and its shares, who works in the business and under what employment status, can the business prove it owns the IP, and would Ben like to declare anything else which may impact the value of the business. Ben struggles to answer these questions and loses out on the investment. And with no means to fund the business, he starts to become in a bit of a pickle and he doesn't know what to do next.
Sadly, this is quite a familiar story, and we often get contacted when elements of this have come together, usually one rather than all of them, but eventually the business stalls. So, you know, at each stage, quite a lot of effort's gone in. So giving up your job to set up the business, putting a load of cash in to set up the business, the initial cash. Stage 2, getting people involved. You're spending money on an employee, HMRC, PAYE, national insurance. The consultant, you've got to find the right person, invest in them, pay them, get the code spent, and even the intern, whether you pay them or not, there's still effort. So you're putting money in, and then stage 3, going for launch. Again, a lot of money's being spent at each stage. What people don't forget is that a small amount of money, or even effort, can secure and protect the business at each of those stages, and that's what we're going to go through next.
So, to rewind the clock, we get in our DeLorean and go back to the beginning. And the first fundamental error that happened here was right at day 1. They do say you should never get married without planning for the divorce. Okay? And if you ever watch American TV series, you know, legal series, you'll know all about prenup agreements. Anna and Ben were friends. They went into business on a handshake. And so many times that happens because people get carried away with the great idea. And that often are friends before they start out. And they've worked together before, and they know they get on, so this is going to work like a dream. Anna and Ben, on that handshake, didn't set up a legal structure for their business, didn't formalise their partnership, so what they ended up with is something in law known as a partnership at will. They stored up loads of problems, and that had lots of implications for the way the business would operate, the way the business would come to an end, even the taxation of any profits made and the sharing of those profits. So to give that business some good legal structure and to give it a legal entity, most people set up what you will have heard of as a limited company. And that means that they've set up a legal entity which is separate from them, in which all the assets of the business are separate. They're in the limited company. All the liabilities are separate. and then the ownership of that business is by shares, which would have been presumably 1 share each for Anna and Ben, for example. And as more owners come into the business because they invest money or time, more shares could be issued. And that's fine, and that gives it some structure, but that's not a divorce agreement. And what isn't required in law, and what doesn't happen automatically, but it's really, really sensible, is something called a shareholder's agreement. Now, a lot of companies forget to do this, and when the divorce happens, they come to somebody like me or Des and go, well, how do we sort it out? How do I know what that person should get? And we have to say, well, okay, there are legal processes and they're going to cost you money, and people go, oh, God, no. The shareholders' agreement, there are loads of basic templates out there. I'm not going to give you the names of websites, you can go and find them, but there are lots of online solutions for this now. But even if you were to come to a lawyer like us and say, what can I get and how much, it's probably not going to cost you more than a few £100. And that might seem a lot at the time when you're starting out, but believe me, it will save a lot of aggro, a lot of cost, a lot of heartache in the long run. And that shareholders' agreement can cover things like restrictive covenants, which will protect the business that you are growing, the value that you are growing in that business. Without those, you might find that somebody like Anna, who goes off into the sunset, can take quite a lot of that value through information and relationships that they've built up in the business. So some really, really key things here. Don't get married without planning for the divorce. So the next thing is our question about the people. When you bring people in to work in your business, as an employment lawyer, you won't be surprised that I will say, get the formalities right. There was no paperwork. So although we knew that Erica was coming in as an employee and being paid through PAYE, presumably, and called an employee, and we know Archie was a self-employed, a business owner, he was invoicing, so he's not an employee. Our question was about Isla. Now, we asked, was she a volunteer worker, employee, or D, it depends? The correct answer is it depends. She probably started out as a worker. Even if the business called her a volunteer, and most businesses do this, come and get some work experience. You're not going to get paid because you're getting some experience and it's a benefit to you. You're just volunteering. Unless that person is doing nothing of value for your business, they're just doing it for the good of their heart, they will not be a volunteer. They will, at the minimum, be a worker. So you can have people come into your business to shadow, to get work experience, and that's fine if it's for a very limited time and you don't tie them in and they don't start doing productive work for you. If they start doing productive work, they get worker status. They're usually getting paid by that point, but some people are too naive to say, yeah, I want, or not brave enough to say, yes, I need to be paid now. If you as the business don't take control of that situation, worker rights, rights to paid holiday, rights to minimum wage, rights to limits on working time, even the right to join a pension scheme now, and rights, all sorts of other statutory rights then apply. Too long a list to tell you now. The longer things go on, and if they're getting paid and expected to turn up for work and do certain outputs, the more likely is they get the gold-plated status of an employee. And it's gold-plated because that person then gets a right to receive notice pay. If they're with you for more than 2 years, you cannot dismiss them unless you follow a fair process and have a very, very good reason for doing so. And they get the right to a redundancy payment if the business folds. So, worth thinking very carefully about what basis you're taking people into your business on. Even more importantly, get it defined on paper. These contracts, again, some very good basic templates out there. If you're not sure, come and talk to somebody like me, and we'll talk through what that person's doing in your business, the nature of the relationship, and what you should be putting into that agreement with them. And there's one other good reason why this matters. The only person on that screen that owes any duty of confidentiality in this business, can anybody guess? It's Erica. Neither of the others owe any confidentiality to this business. And why is that important? Because all the good information that they have access to, your financial data, your customer list, your marketing plan, your visuals, everything that you're creating might be intellectual property, which Des will talk to you about, but it certainly is your business proprietary information. Do you want to give that away to your workers? No. So don't let it happen. The way to formalise confidentiality, even with employees, there are only very basic duties of a confidentiality and they only apply during employment. So get an agreement, a contract of employment for Erica, a contractor's agreement for Archie, a worker agreement, an intern agreement for Isla, and in it put your confidentiality obligations, the expectations on the worker or the employee, and get some restrictive covenants in that agreement that apply when employment comes to an end. And then your employee, your worker, whoever it is, can't screw you over for your information. And without that information on those relationships with key people, key stakeholders that you engage with as a business, your business might well fail. Okay, over to Des.
So you remember what was actually created by the people in the business was they were involved with the concept, also the code, which is protected by copyright, and perhaps the graphics. So copyright is really important. Confidentiality was mentioned by Liz. Once that product is in the market, the concept is no longer secret, and it may not even be protectable by law, but it could be. So confidentiality is important. And Liz mentioned that the gold-plated employee, the not-so-gold-plated consultant or intern. In terms of intellectual property, though, so the copyright in the code, the thing to remember is, the easiest thing to remember is, if you create something, you own it personally, unless you're an employee, in which case your employer owns it. So again, Erica, you're okay. The others, you're not. But Erica, you can put some shine on that gold by also making sure the contract really deals with what's in employment. Is it when she's literally sat in the desk working 9 to 5, or does it also include working from home, working on other projects that may be related to the business? So you can tighten that up. The big risk in this business, though, is Archie and Isla. We did have a quiz on this one. So our answers, what did we get as the most popular answer?
The most popular one was B, just the code and brand.
Good. Perfect. You all got it right. You were listening. So, yeah, the concept's limited, but do have your confidentiality. The other two, really important. So, in terms of the agreements, what should you have? So you need, your employment contract, polish it up. The other two, you need your NDA to cover confidentiality and an assignment. You must have a written assignment. A nod and a wink isn't enough for copyright. It's not like other things. It's a bit like land. You need a signed agreement by those people. Okay. Oh, quick reminder as well in that. If someone's producing code, make sure they have to transfer the actual source code to you, because sometimes external people don't work on your computers. So I've seen before people have paid out for that software and they haven't got a copy of the source code, which is rather embarrassing when it comes to the investment stage. So, the final point on this sorry tale of what could have been done. So, the nasty letter just before the big trade show, and there's two things here that could have been done. There's a public register of trademarks for each country. So the UK Intellectual Property Office, so a registered trademark, there is actually a register, don't believe it or not, and it's online. Now, you can do basic searches yourself, but it's not just identical marks, it's things that are similar or maybe look-alike, sound-alike that can be an issue, and people who have similar products, not the same. So you should ideally have a professional look at those, and it's typically a few £100s. Sometimes it's more complicated, but that could have saved the problem of the trade show. Again, to gold plate this and protect yourself against others, so you could use it if someone else comes up with the name, is getting your own registered trademark. And again, that's a few £100s normally if things go smoothly. So both of those things relatively cheap and could save, if you're spending tens of thousands going to the NEC to buy your stand and all the effort, it's worth doing. Because, with the question, all of the above was the answer. So what did we get as the...
Yep, 81% of people said the right answer.
Okay, so I think we're there. Over to
So just to wrap it up, we've taken a tour back over what happened. We've put in some basic steps at each stage, and lots of things can go wrong along the way. It's not just the legal stuff, but with some basic foundations for this business and some key protections, the business might have got to the investment they needed because they would have had the value in the business protected. So we're here tonight. Please catch us, ask us your questions if we haven't covered them here in this talk. It'll be a pleasure to network with you after over pizza. Our email addresses are on the screen, and there's a QR code if you want to scan it. That will give you access to set up a 30-minute meeting with us if you have questions that you want to talk to us one-on-one about any of these issues or other related stuff for your business. Thank you very much for listening.
Okie dokie. I saw a couple of questions come through on the Slido, so I don't know whether we want to ask those first. And then give you a minute or two to think of your questions before I come with you at a microphone.
So one of the questions was, what is the biggest hurdle do we have to go through in setting up a business?
Blimey, that's... I guess do you mean... well, I guess it depends on the business, doesn't it? Because I had a hurdle, because I had to get... 8 years ago, because we had to be approved by the regulator, and I wanted everything online and cloud, and the regulator of law firms wasn't used to having anything other than just paper. And they were doing loads of webinars about, oh, do it all online, cloud. And when I actually did it, and I sent the application form in, which already was 50 pages, and another form that was 30 pages, I couldn't trade without regulation. So I guess it depends on the business. I'm not really answering the question, am I? Setting up a limited company is quite easy. It's like you can almost do it yourself. You can do it 20, 30 quid, and there's plenty of agencies that will do that. So that's not really a hurdle. It's very easy in this country. In some countries, it's difficult. I don't know. Do you want to add anything to that?
Well, I think you need a really good idea that's got some marketability, and that's not a legal thing. We have the privilege of being in this environment where there's lots of businesses with brilliant ideas, and getting those ideas to market is a massive challenge. But you put a lot of investment into that in terms of time, and you often need people to help you with that. And in my line of work, I see the people thing as a great opportunity, but often comes as quite a challenge to business, because once you've got people working in your business, you've got distractions. And somebody said to me recently, an academic, the main thing is to keep the main thing being the main thing. So you want as few distractions as the founders and the drivers of your business as possible. So one thing I've learned in the last 12 months being here, talking to lots of different people, is if you haven't got the skills to cover something, find them somewhere else. It's very easy for us business founders and entrepreneurs, whatever, to think we've got to do everything. Well, there are other people out there to help us, and there's lots of support in this community here, so tap into it.
Another question was, can you define someone as an employee if you're not paying them?
No. Because the very meat and bones of an employment relationship is mutuality of obligation. That means there's a bargain. An employee does something for an employer in return for what, if not pay? It has to be a paid relationship. And pay can look like different things. It doesn't have to be a salary. It can be 0 hours. It can be casual. There are such things as casual employees. But if you're paying somebody to do output for you, at the minimum, they're going to be a worker, but they're probably going to start looking like an employee if they're doing all of that under your control, supervision, at your demand, your expectations. Does that answer the question? Hopefully. Nobody's going to be brave enough to say it was theirs.
And the last question was, at what stage should you trademark an idea?
An idea and a trademark protects the name or the logo. So Tech Wednesday and the splotch.
Weird thing.
And some other things. So there's no idea as such. It's the trading style, the visual. And which stage should you? As early as possible, because if someone files another trademark that's the same or similar before the date you file it, then they can stop you using it or getting a trademark. So really, it's as early as possible. And the good thing about a registered trademark is it's as opposed to just building up a reputation through use. So you have a hairdresser, Desi's Barbers or whatever. I might have a reputation. People would only travel maybe 20 miles to get their hair cut. So you may have a reputation in your area for hairdressing, but a registered trademark, you'd get cover across the UK to stop people, and also you can go broader and say, get hair products and scissors and whatever. So you can get those broader things, even though you haven't got use. So you can cover areas that you might move into in the future. So the short answer is as early as possible.
I guess follow-up question from that, if I was to trademark Tech Wednesday, but I happen to want to change it to Tech Thursday, is that trademark transferable, or would I need another one? And Friday? Saturday? Okie dokie.
Listening?
I'll be in the pub, I'll be gone by then. Okie dokie. Any questions from the floor whilst we're here?
Hi. Just really a follow-up to that trademark question, which is, at what stage should you patent if you've got something that you can patent? Okay.
We have a patent attorney in the room, but I'm not going to drop him in it, because that is a relatively straightforward question. Well, no, it isn't. I've been in enough meetings with Mark. Well, you can't patent it if you've already told people about it. So that's too late. Okay, so if you're going to a trade show or you're going to publish it, academics often like to tell everyone about what they've invented. So if you put it online, it's too late. So that's the main thing. There are certain minor exceptions, but and there's ways you can buy extra time and clever tricks, but essentially, earlier the better. Because if someone else, you delay for 2 months and someone else either publishes it at a trade show or files a patent, you can't get yours. Is that enough of an answer, Mark?
I'm going to take one more. I think there was a hand over here, and then we'll swiftly move on.
Hi. In terms of branding and business names for like new startups, what's the big difference between trademarking and copywriting?
So, copyright is a right that protects all kinds of things that are created. So, a script for a film, a painting, a photograph, software code, architect design for a building, various actual works, and they last a long time, 50 years or 70 years after death, etc. So music is a classic one, so Elvis's music was carrying on. Registered trademark, so think of the Nike swoosh, the red triangle for bass, the word bass, etc. So, and that relates only to certain goods and services that it's registered for, so Polo for sweets, Polo for VW, etc. And they're territorial. Copyright automatically sort of is recognised in other countries, so Elvis's music, whereas a trademark has to be registered in that specific country. So a UK trademark is only the UK. Does that answer? I'm happy if you want more afterwards, but I could speak all day on that. But
And I think we'll pop back up that QR code in the networking, so please do take advantage of that 30-minute session with the team of Burley Law. Go on.
phones if you want that QR code. So
there we go. Thank you ever so much for your questions. I'm sure there's many more to follow. So another round of applause for the team from Burley Law. Okay, we're going to move straight on. So I'm going to welcome Talitha to the stage. You've got the clicker perfect. You can steal my mic, don't worry. There you go.
Hi, so I'm Talitha Degwa, Senior Associate at VWV, which is a full-service law firm, and I'm part of the immigration team. And I advise on business immigration matters as well as personal immigration matters. So today I'll be talking about some of the current immigration routes that we have in place, as well as some of the upcoming routes as well, focused at the tech sector, so businesses as well as individuals. There's many more immigration routes which I could speak about, but obviously due to time, I won't be doing that, so I'll just speak about the main relevant immigration routes. And of course, if you want to ask me any questions about any routes that we speak about today or that I don't speak about, I'm more than happy for you to ask me questions at the end or grab me at the end as well. So the first sponsored work route that we have is called the skilled worker route. And this was previously called the Tier 2 General route. I don't know, maybe some of you have heard of that before. And essentially, this is the main immigration route that is used by employers in the UK in order to sponsor overseas workers. So the route's been around for a while, but on the 1st of December 2020, some major changes were brought about, not only just changing the name of the route, but also changing the requirements that needed to be met by the employer as well as the employee. So the first change that we had was that the minimum skill level was reduced from regulated qualification framework 6 to 3. So essentially what that meant is previously under the Tier 2 General route, in order for an employer to sponsor an overseas worker, they would have to be classed as a highly skilled migrant, so someone that had a graduate level role basically offered to them. So it was quite restricted, and certain industries and sectors weren't eligible to sponsor overseas workers. So the Home Office had reduced that now to level 3, which means that it covers much more mid-level roles and still your highly skilled roles as well. So we're seeing much more industries, roles added to the list that previously were ineligible for sponsorship. Another change was that the salary threshold was also reduced. So under the Tier 2 General route, the role on offer would have to be paid at least £30,000. That had now been reduced, so it's the £25,600 which the employee would need to be offered by the sponsor in order to take up that sponsorship in the UK. There are also ways in order to lower that salary further to £20,480, and that's if certain exceptions apply. So, say for example, the role that you've got on offer is on the shortage occupation list, so it's a role deemed in the UK that is at shortage. then the salary can be potentially lowered to the 20,480. Or if the individual that you want to offer a role to is classed as a new entrant. So a new entrant is someone that's under 26 years old, or a student in the UK that successfully completed their course and now wants to switch into the skilled worker route. So another way that you can potentially lower the salary that you offer them. Another change was that the resident labour market test was also removed. So previously, when employers wanted to offer a role to an overseas worker, they had to advertise the role for at least 28 days to the local labour market force in a prescribed way on a certain platform. So it was very prescripted and time-consuming. The Home Office has now removed that. So if an employer wanted to offer a role to an overseas employee, they wouldn't have to advertise a role. Obviously, you would still advertise if that's what you need to do to find someone, but you don't have to follow the prescribed format that the Home Office had previously set out, which is great for reducing times to onboard the prospective employee. Another change was that the cap was removed. So previously, under the Tier 2 general route, if an employer wanted to sponsor someone that was based overseas, they would have to request a certificate of sponsorship from the Home Office. And each month, the Home Office had a cap on how many numbers of certificates it would issue to an employer. Just before the route change, we saw that certain months, well, a couple of months, there was not enough certificates to go around, so employers, were having to apply the next month and hopefully get through. That's now been removed. But however, if you still want to sponsor someone that's based overseas, you still have to request a certificate, but there just won't be any cap on how many certificates the Home Office will issue to the employer. Another great change was that you can now easily switch into the skilled worker route. So before it was much more restricted. So if you had someone here that was on a Tier 5 youth mobility visa, which is available to certain nationalities, and they essentially apply for the visa based on their nationality and age and can come to the UK for at least 2 years. If they had previously found a role in the UK that they wanted to obviously work with because they've obtained sponsorship, they would have had to leave the UK in order to make an application on this route, but that's now been scrapped. So there's much more flexibility and movement for other individuals on other immigration routes to switch into the skilled worker route. And the last point I've kind of covered already. So previously, you had to meet the 30,000 annual salary threshold, and there was no kind of way around that. Whereas now you've got the tradable points where, so like I said, if you're a new entrant or the role falls on the shortage occupation list, there's a way of obviously being paid less than the 25,600. So some great changes that were brought into force, making the route more available to industries that previously wouldn't have been able to rely on overseas workers. And like I said, it's the main route that is used in the UK by employers to sponsor overseas workers. So on this slide, I've just kind of illustrated in terms of the skill level where I said it has dropped. So it used to be RQF 6, now it's RQF 3 and 4. So on the first part of the table, I've listed some of the roles now which are eligible for sponsorship, which previously would have not been. So you can see that it's typically your middle management and technician roles. And then on the second part of the slide, I've listed some of the lower skilled roles, which actually are not eligible for sponsorship. And I think the big tip here is that if you are considering yourself or as a business on recruiting someone and the role is kind of your level 3 or 4, to always look at the lower skilled roles as well, just to make sure that the role that you're offering doesn't actually suit a lower skills occupation code. Because if it does, then unfortunately that means that the role wouldn't be eligible for sponsorship. So it's just making sure that you are checking your roles before you're assigning certificates to individuals to make sure that obviously sponsorship is eligible and they would have a successful application. So another sponsored immigration route, which is opening on the 22nd of August this year, so a new route. Nothing like this we've seen before, so it's quite exciting. And as it suggests in the title, it's focused towards scale-ups, so scale-up companies in the UK. And in order for a scale-up company to be eligible, they would have to evidence that they meet the scale-up criteria, which is the company would need to show that it's got an annualized growth, turnover or staffing of at least 20% for the previous 3 years, and a minimum of 10 employees at the start of the 3-year period. So it's taken you past the startups and more established, growing businesses. And I think this route is something especially that is focused towards the tech sector, as we're seeing, tech companies rapidly growing, investors investing in companies. So if you think your company can meet that definition of a scale-up, then it is a route that you should definitely think of. In terms of why this is better than the skilled worker route, it's a lighter touch in terms of sponsorship. So you would still need to get a sponsor license in order to sponsor employees. But if anyone's had any involvement with having a sponsor license, you'll know that it's quite an onerous process. There's a lot of sponsor duties that need to be adhered to. And you can get really told off if you're not sticking to that. Whereas this one, if you've got the license, you can sponsor the worker just for an initial period of 6 months, let's say. And then after those 6 months have gone, you don't then need to go on and renew their visa. So that individual can continue working for you, which is great, because with the skilled worker route, that could never happen. If the person's visa is expiring, you would need, and you want them to continue working with you, you would need to obviously, assign another certificate to them so they can extend their visa. So in this case, this would help, especially tech companies, if in the next 6 months or year, you actually don't know the status of your company. So if you know that you're going to get funding, or if you're going to have some kind of structural or organizational change, which if you had a skilled worker, would mean that you would need to inform the Home Office and give up your license and essentially apply for a new one. In this instance, if there's been any change to your business, so in terms of structure, ownership, you wouldn't need to report that to the Home Office. And instead, this employee, after the 6 months, could continue working for you. So much more light touch and much more flexibility for that employee as well as the employer. The salary on offer on this route is slightly higher though, so they would need to be offered at least £33,000 a year. And the skill level of the route is higher than the skilled worker route, so the role would have to be at a RQF level 6, or a highly skilled individual which has a graduate level, at least a graduate level job offer, in order to obviously meet the requirements. But overall, I think it's a great route. Obviously, it's not open yet, so it would be great to see when it is open, the type of businesses that do take advantage of it. But I do think it is something that the tech industry should consider, especially if they can meet the definition of scale-up, due to just be more flexibility on, sponsorship. So this is now the graduate route, which I'll talk about, which is an unsponsored immigration route. So this route was open last year summer, so it's been about a year now. And it's essentially for international students that have studied at a UK university and have completed an eligible course. So we used to, years ago, have an immigration route similar to this called the post-study worker visa. But then that was abolished, and then now the Home Office has seemed to brought this route into place, which essentially is that route again, just renamed it. So a student in the UK has completed a degree, for example, they successfully completed that. They can, before their visa expiry, make this graduate visa application. They would just need to evidence that they've successfully completed the course, which the university will report on their system anyway to the Home Office. And then once they've made the visa, and providing it is successful, they'll be issued with a 2-year visa in most cases. If the individual is a PhD graduate, then they'll be issued with 3 years. And essentially what the visa allows them to do is anything that they wish, so they can use that time to look for work, take up work. And the great thing is that if they were to take up work, they can do
any work at any skill level, at any salary, with any business. There's no sponsorship that's required, so there's no restrictions on the individual, much more flexibility for the individual as well as the employer if they were to take on someone with this visa. The main disadvantage of the route is that anyone that spends time on that on the graduate route, the route wouldn't count towards indefinite leave to remain, so settlement in the UK. So, you know, if you've spent 2 years here, that wouldn't count towards your indefinite leave to remain. So unfortunately, the best bet would be to use that time that you've been given that visa to look for skilled work, or, you know, to see if you meet any other immigration route. And if you do, then your clock towards ILR would start at that point that you go into that immigration route. So the high potential individual visa route. So this is another new immigration category as well that will be opening this month on the 30th of May. Very similar to the graduate route, which I've just mentioned, but this is for international students that have studied overseas at an eligible university. So we haven't seen a route like this before. It's brand new, so it'd be exciting to see, you know, how many talented graduates we actually attract. But essentially, they would have to have successfully completed a degree or above. It can be within the last 5 years. And like I said, it would have to be at an eligible university. So this month, the Home Office published a global universities list, which lists all the universities that are eligible, and essentially it's the top 50 universities in the world. So it is quite restricted. And what we saw on the list, that is the majority of universities in the US, EU, a few in Hong Kong and China, but majority of the US universities on there. So if the overseas graduate has attending any of those universities on that list, they could essentially potentially make this visa application. And again, if they are issued the visa, most graduates will be given 2 years, but if you're a PhD graduate, you'll be given 3 years. And like the graduate route, there's no restrictions, so you can use that time to look for work, take up work at any skill level or at any company. Again, the time that you spend on this route wouldn't count towards indefinite leave to remain, but like the graduate route, it's you are able to switch into the skilled worker route, for example, if you obtained sponsorship in the UK or any other immigration rule, provided you met the eligibility criteria. So another great route for not just for the individuals, but employers, where they can attract, you know, overseas talent for, you know, a few years, and then obviously if they're happy with the person that they've got, they could always go on and offer sponsored employment. That was good timing. Smelled the pizza. So yeah, feel free to connect with me on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter, or you can scan the QR code, which will take you to my profile on our website, and which will have my contact details on there. And I'm happy for any of you to get in contact with me after this or whilst we're here, if you have any questions about what I've discussed today or any of the other immigration routes which I haven't mentioned. So I don't know if anyone's got any questions now.
A round of applause, please. Okay, I'm very aware that that's a lot of information and a lot of questions that we probably can't ask in front of everybody, but is there anybody with any burning questions that would like to voice that? Yeah?
What are the requirements to get a sponsorship license?
So it essentially depends on the type of business that you are. So depending on your business, there'll be specified documents that you need to provide to the Home Office in support of your license application. So yeah, the list varies, so it does really depend on the business that you are. And then obviously the list would be tailored towards yourself.
So do they look at the finances of your business as well?
Sorry, say that again?
Do they look at the finances of your business, how well you're doing?
No, they don't look at that. You have to be a trading and established business, but they're not looking at, you know, to see if you're profitable or not. That's not something that they would look into detail on, no.
Right, and how long it takes if you get the license, and do you still have to get through a work permit for them, or can you just send them a sponsor, like a offer letter, and they can apply directly?
So once the business has got its license, it can take up to 8 weeks to get the license. There is a priority service that you can use to expedite that, and it can take 10 working days, but it's quite difficult to get that because it's highly prescribed service. Once you do have the license, it's valid for 4 years. You would then, once you've found an individual that you want to sponsor, go into your sponsorship management system, which you're given access to, and assign a certificate of sponsorship to them. Once you've assigned that certificate, the individual can then use that in support of their visa application. So they would then separately need to make a visa application with that certificate of sponsorship to the Home Office, and then they would consider that work application.
Yeah, so you don't need once you have the license, you don't need a separate work permit as another
No,
thing.
no, the license is your work permit, basically, yeah.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? This is where the pizza does fill the room. Okay, another round of applause, please, for Talitha. Okay, quickly rattle through some upcoming events that you might like to know about. So this Friday afternoon, you'll probably recognise Dan's face if you've been to Tech Wednesday before. So Dan is one of our mentors who deliver some workshops on our behalf. This Friday, he will be joined by Jeffrey, very fetching photo there. So Jeffrey has a vast array of experience. He will be talking all around exits, so company exits. He's just completed his 7th exit of a software company, and I wrote down the figure. It was $185 million. He's just exited his 7th company. It's not bad, is it? So, Friday's session will be here in person, so if you can join us here, 1:45, please do. There'll be some light refreshments and we can get talking to Jeffrey. And Dan is also a great person to just have a conversation with. Next week, we have another session happening here in this building with the team from Bloomwise. So Paris and Frankie are here with us this evening. So next Wednesday lunchtime, again, there'll be refreshments provided, which is always a draw, but we know how stressful it can be as an entrepreneur and as even an employee. So if you would like to join us to talk about those stress management top tips and tricks, then please do join us on Wednesday at 1 p.m. I'll keep rotating the screens during the networking, and please do join us for that. Another exciting announcement. So this week we have announced that we are a district partner for Birmingham Design Festival. So Birmingham Design Festival is a 3-day festival happening throughout the whole of the city. We here have been assigned as the designated digital hub. So throughout those 3 days, there'll be international speakers, there'll be local speakers, everything within the creative arts, digital tech. We will be talking about it. So please do look out for that. It's completely free to attend. About 2,000 people usually attend throughout the 3 days. So again, really great place to just connect with people and make some new friends, basically. 9th to 11th of June. And then finally, before Tech Wednesday next month, so obviously we would love you to join us from 5:30. However, at 3:30, we'll be delivering a session here before Tech Wednesday around the Birmingham Knowledge Quarter. So you are now sat in the Birmingham Knowledge Quarter. Don't know whether you know it or not, but it's 10 institutes, ourselves included, and it's the redesign and regeneration of this region. So ourselves down to Millennium Point, universities, all included. That's a lovely CGI at the back of the building. So there's iCentrum. In the next couple of years, you'll be able to walk down some steps, go along to this boozy barge, have a nice drink when the sun's out in the summer, and then walk along with some lovely food, street food retailers, all the way down to Millennium Point along the canal locks, which we will be developing and making it a lovely place to be. So if you can join us just that slightly bit earlier, there's some really cool stuff in the pipeline, so please do join us. Also next month, it's a Geovation takeover of Tech Wednesday. So if you have been with us before, Geovation have done many of these takeovers, probably 10 or so in the 4 years that I've been doing Tech Wednesday. They are our London Tech Hub partner, so they'll be bringing a number of startups down to Birmingham to talk all about geospatial data. They work with the Ordnance Survey and Land Registry, so some cool things that definitely I would never have thought of. So that's it. Pizzas are here. Give us a few moments just to pop them out. Please do use the bathroom, help yourself to a drink whilst we get them out, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening. 8 o'clock, lights off, everybody out. I'm joking. Thank you ever so much and enjoy the rest of your evening.